So it was about 12:30 last night. I'm hanging out at my friend's apartment. I feel my phone buzz in my pocket, check my phone, and my heart sank. I turned to my friend and I said, either Shams got hacked or the Dallas Mavericks' Nico Harrison just made the dumbest move in NBA history. I don't have any funny intro for you guys today, nothing like that, because today I am just reacting to the craziest trade of my life and possibly the craziest trade in sports and basketball history. Luka Doncic, the face of the franchise for the Dallas Mavericks, a consensus top 3 player in the league, fresh off of an NBA Finals appearance, got traded to the biggest market in arguably all of sports, the Los Angeles Lakers, to be paired with the biggest phenomenon in sports history, LeBron James. This is an unprecedented move, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Anthony Davis to the Mavericks on the other side of the deal. The full details are the Mavericks get Anthony Davis, they get Max Christie, they get a 2029 first-round pick from the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers come out as the big winners, of course. They get Luka Doncic, they get Markieff Morris, and they get Maxi Kleber. And then the Jazz sort of got in on the other end of it, and they got a couple second-round picks from both the Lakers and the Mavericks, as well as Jalen Hood-Schifino. So I'm just here to quickly react to, like I said, the craziest move that I can ever remember. And there's been a little bit of news trickling out since this trade happened. Nico Harrison and Jason Kidd did their big press conference, and there have been some reports from Mark Stein about what the Mavericks were thinking when they made this deal, as well as Tim McMahon. A lot of unknown still behind the scenes. When a deal like this happens, you assume that at some point there's going to be some big news dump with something that is just going to completely blow our minds, because conventional wisdom, logic makes you think that this is a trade that would never in a million years happen. Like I said, my knee-jerk reaction when I saw this notification was, oh, Shams got hacked. There's no way that any team would ever trade their franchise cornerstone, 25-year-old, not even yet in their prime, 5-time All-NBA superstar. It just doesn't happen in the NBA. You can't do this on NBA 2K. You can't do this in a video game. It just doesn't happen. So, like I said, my quick reaction, and then maybe towards the end of the video, I'll get into what this means for the rest of the NBA, because the biggest chess piece on the board just got moved out of nowhere. Is anybody untouchable anymore? Is there a new arms race in the Western Conference? Do we have a new clear-cut number one now that Luka and LeBron are teammates? And are the Thunder going to get a little bit more aggressive? Are the Nuggets going to get a little bit more aggressive? Are some of these teams going to try to jockey a little bit more than they previously were planning on, because there's been a new precedent set in the Western Conference that a new super team is being formed? Like I said, I'll try to get into all of that later. But first, just the reaction. I mean, this is honestly the most shocked I've been from an NBA story, or from a story in general, since Kobe died. Like, that's the closest thing I can equate this to. Just checking my phone, seeing that notification that Kobe died, and being like, no, somebody is trolling. NBA Memes was the account I saw it on first. Like, no, I need to look up, like, I need a peer-reviewed source to tell me that this is true. I need to look at everything up on Twitter. I need to look up Kobe Bryant on Safari and see if there are any news articles about it. Like, I need 3 or 4 sources to tell me this is true, because this is just such a random, out-of-nowhere event that you just don't believe it. But it is true. It is real. The Lakers have posted it on social media. It's all the way everywhere on ESPN. Shams has come out and talked about it. Perk, Stephen A. Smith got woken up at 1 o'clock a.m. to talk about the trade. Like I opened this video and said, the Mavericks, I can't think of anything other than a terrible mistake. Like I said, there has to be something more going on behind the scenes. Luka Doncic is 25 years old, 26 in February. He has 5 All-NBA first teams. The only time he hasn't made it was as a rookie. He's coming fresh off of an NBA Finals appearance. He sleepwalks into 30, 10, and 10 games for each of the last 5 years, basically. Efficiency has been a little bit of a problem, but still close to 50% from the field, close to 40% from 3, numbers that you would assume were going to continue to go up. Conditioning has always been a problem too, but if you're a little chunky and you still average 30, 10, and 10 and take a team to the NBA Finals, I think that's something that we can look past. I mean, this is a guy who is in rarefied air as far as players go who are young enough to have a championship window for a team be open for the next 10 or so years, but also good enough at this young age to win a championship right now. I think Luka, Giannis, and Nikola Jokic are probably the only 3 players I'm 100% certain could win me a championship right now as the best player on their team, and could also keep my championship window open for the next 10 years. Maybe you could talk yourself into Shea and Wemby with a little bit of projection. They're both still young, and neither of them have the playoff experience that Luka Doncic has, or that Jokic or Giannis have. But those are the only other 2 players who would be sort of on the periphery of that conversation. Essentially, what I'm saying is Luka Doncic is, at worst, a top 3 player in the league, not just right now, but for the next 10 years. This is a guy that doesn't get moved. Ask teams like the Pistons, ask teams like the Hornets, the Rockets, these teams that have stunk, been mid for the last 10 years, who have done everything they can to get as many lottery picks as possible, and none of them have ever hit on a player similar to Luka Doncic. This is a once-in-a-generation type of pick that you got in Luka, and this is somebody that you keep around for the long haul, you build around. And there's this sort of reputation that these European players have, started with a guy like Dirk, and then Giannis sort of seems like he's going to fit this similar mold, Nikola Jokic, where these guys just seem like they tough it out for their franchise. They like to honor the team that drafted them, that took the risk on the foreign kid out of Greece or Slovenia or Serbia, and they're just going to honor the franchise that drafted them, like Dirk did, like Jokic has done, like Giannis has done, where maybe they put pressure on the franchise to make some moves, but more often than not, they're pretty content where they are, and they're willing to do everything they can for the city that drafted them, for the city that took a chance on this random kid that nobody had film on, that nobody believed in. And Luka seemed like he was going to be one of those guys. There was never any news that came out of his camp, that came out of the Mavericks camp, that, oh yeah, Luka is really pushing for them to trade for Kyrie, or he's going to move. Luka really wants them to get rid of Porzingis, or to get Porzingis, or he's going to move. All the narratives were Luka is so good right now that the Mavericks are putting the pressure on themselves to build a championship contender around him, because they want to maximize every single year of his 15, 20-year championship window. So for them to do this and to just move off of Luka with no conversation, no build-up, is completely... it's malpractice, honestly, for an NBA front office to do this. We're talking about one of the 3 probably most valuable assets in the league, with Victor Wembanyama. Maybe he's second beside Victor Wembanyama as far as being a valuable asset goes. He was eligible for a Supermax extension this coming off season, and Nico Harrison said in his press conference today, like, there was no second thought about us giving him that Supermax extension. We were going to do it. We just didn't know if he was going to sign it. But then, to kind of clarify on that point, the question was asked, well, did you have any inkling that he wanted out of Dallas, that he wasn't going to sign it? No, but we just wanted to avoid a potentially tumultuous summer. That's a move with no logical backing at all, to say, in theory, Luka could decline this Supermax contract, and he could become a free agent, and we could lose him for nothing, but the payday was going to be 5 years, almost $400 million. He was going to accept that contract, especially if you have no reason to believe he wasn't going to. And even if he doesn't sign the Supermax, and you have one more year with him, and then you have the player option after that where he can opt out and become a free agent, and anybody in the league can sign him, 1 year of Luka Doncic, that rental is still going to get you more than what you just got. Look at Mikal Bridges. Look at Kevin Durant when he got traded to the Phoenix Suns. When these superstars get moved, Anthony Davis the first time around, these superstars in their prime get moved, it's at least 4 draft picks. Rudy Gobert, 4 draft picks, 5 first-round picks, 2 good young players. Luka gets all of that and more, whether it's his contract year or right now. So the fact that also in this same press conference, Nico Harrison said, yeah, I only talked to the Lakers. It started out with coffee with Rob Pelinka, their general manager, and Rob Pelinka said, would you ever do this? And I said, well, no, but maybe. You're not even going to take this up with other teams? You have, like I said, one of the most valuable assets in the league. You could have started an all-out, complete bidding war. And if you decide, it's one thing if the Mavericks decide, hey, we are really worried about his conditioning, even though he just led us to the finals, even though he's led us to the Western Conference Finals, and even though he sleepwalks into 30, 10, and 10, and has made 5 All-NBA first teams, and is still one of the best 3 players at worst in the entire NBA. We're all worried about his conditioning. And even though he hasn't verbally said anything, like Nico Harrison, their general manager, admitted in his press conference, even though he hasn't verbally said anything or given any inclination that he could ever leave the Mavericks, we are worried that one day, the Lakers, one of these big teams, is going to come gear up to offer Luka everything they have, to just empty the war chest to get him onto their team. Even though the Mavericks could have offered him more because they drafted him. They have his right, or they didn't draft him, but he's played every game there. They have the rights to extend him to a bigger, more a bigger contract than any other team can. But still, maybe in the back of your mind, you're thinking, he hasn't said it, but I can tell there are signs he wants to leave. His conditioning is bad. His diet is bad. Whatever. You decide we're going to move off of Luka Doncic. That's still a bad decision. He's still a franchise-altering superstar that teams take decades to try to ever find in the draft, it's still a bad decision, but at least you put that out there to every team in the league. And every team in the league calls you and says, here are 5 first-round picks. Here are 6 first-round picks. Here is Stephon Castle. Here is Devin Vassell. We're the San Antonio Spurs. We will do everything we can to have the best duo in NBA history in the next 5 years. And you give us Luka Doncic to pair with Victor Wembanyama, you can have every other player that we have. You can have every draft pick for the next 5 years. You go and make this news public that Luka is on the market. A deal like that happens. Even if it's not to a team that Luka wants to go to. Even if it's a bad team. A team like the Nets. A team like, the Hawks. A team that doesn't really have a great future, not really has their own draft picks or their own draft capital. You're getting an absolute haul for him. You're getting probably the biggest haul in league history because, like I said, he's 25 years old. He's not even in his prime yet, and he's already led a team to the finals. He is an absolute floor raiser. He's a ceiling raiser. He's a championship winner in himself. He is one of the few players that you put him on a team and you'll get 50 wins. You'll have home court advantage, and you're going to feel good about your chances in the playoffs. He's also a playoff riser. We've seen it before against Phoenix. That series is legendary where everybody acting tough when they up. He had the awesome Game 7. Last year, he was on a bad leg. He wasn't even healthy. He was in bad shape in the playoffs, and he willed the Mavericks to the NBA Finals. This is a once-in-a-generation type of talent that got moved for nothing in the dead of night with no buildup whatsoever. What else is going on behind the scenes? That is the only question on my mind right now, is something not being told to us on Monday or Tuesday? Are we going to have an epic article by Shams Charania detailing all of the practices that Luka has been late to this year, all of the times that Luka has sat down in meetings and said, no, I'm not going to change my diet no matter what you guys say, all of the times he's shown up hungover to practice? Like, what are we missing? That's got to be the question, because otherwise this trade is just completely brain dead, and it makes zero sense in any way for the Dallas Mavericks to make. This is a franchise-altering superstar who led your team to the finals. This is a guy that the fans have attached themselves to. There's a Luka Doncic Day in Dallas. 21 hours ago, the Mavericks posted on their Twitter, Happy Dallas Day, with a video of Luka Doncic getting out of a convertible in a cowboy hat with a whip and a pair of boots. Like, this guy took on this foreign city, this foreign state, Texas, this foreign city, Dallas. He made it part of his identity. He didn't ask to be traded. We've already seen the reports that Luka is still shocked about this. We've seen the reports that Anthony Davis and even LeBron James, because I'm sure there were people who saw this happen and said, okay, yeah, LeBron James said make this happen. But even the reports are saying that he and Anthony Davis had nothing to do with this. They were as shocked as everybody else was. So what else are we going to learn? Or is it simply this cut and dry? Mavericks didn't feel good about their chances with Luka moving forward, and if they didn't, my only question is why? Why don't you feel good about your chances with someone who's 25 years old, was going to sign a supermax to stay with your team for the long haul, was going to give you a championship window for the next 10 years? You trade him for a guy who's about to be 32 years old, who's constantly injured, so you have questions about Luka Doncic's health. I have more about Anthony Davis's. Not only is he older, but he has a bigger injury history. Luka gets banged up now and then, calf, knee, leg. Like I said, in the finals last year, he was banged up. But over the course of his short career so far, he has been very durable. No big injuries, missing time here and there, but eligible for All-NBA, eligible to finish in the top 3 or 5 of MVP, eligible to make the All-Star game, playing in the playoffs. Like, injuries have never been a concern in his career, other than the little knick-knack, miss a week because of a turned ankle. Whereas Anthony Davis is a guy, every single day he falls down and you're worried this is going to be the last game for a month from him. And I understand where the Mavericks are coming from. They say, we want to have a good defense. Defense wins championships. Well, you built a really good defense around Luka last year. You were a top 5 defense after the trade deadline with PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And then in the offseason, they brought in more capable defenders to put around them. Quentin Grimes is a very good defender. Dante Exum hasn't played yet this season, and he's an excellent wing defender who you had on the team when they made the conference finals a few years ago. He put Chris Paul and Devin Booker in prison on defense. Like, you have the pieces around Luka and Kyrie where you were able to make an incredibly good defense anyways. So obviously the problem isn't defense. You had that. I mean, getting Anthony Davis in, you get to play him at the 4, so he gets his wish. That's good for him. I'm happy for Anthony Davis. He finally gets to not play the 5 anymore. But spacing-wise, doesn't make any sense either from the Mavericks side of things. It's like, I don't want to talk about it too much on the Mavericks side, other than the Luka going outside, because that's obviously the big storyline. Yeah, just a completely nonsensical trade. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And from the looks of it, from how it sounds, nobody in the league had any inkling that this was something that was possibly going to happen. Because like I said, if anybody did think that this could happen, then I promise there would have been a bidding war. I promise there would have been a team who was willing to give up 5 first-round picks for Luka Doncic. I know that with 100% certainty. This is one of the best players in the league, one of the most valuable assets in NBA history. I mean, he's already probably a Hall of Famer given what he's done overseas and his short career so far in the NBA. He's made All-NBA first team, like, more times than guys like Dame and Kyrie, and more All-Star games than some of the best players in the league. He's an anomaly in the NBA, a guy that, like I said, is good enough to win you a championship right now, but is young enough to win you a championship as the best player in 8 years too. So enough about like how crazy of a trade this is. I do want to get into a little bit. I don't want this video to be too long. I'm going to get into a little bit of where I think the Lakers go from here. I think the starting 5 moving forward has to be Luka. Obviously, LeBron's in there. Although there are people that now think that Luka is the guy and LeBron gets moved, which I don't see. Chris Haynes said LeBron is going to stay on the Lakers, and he and Luka seem to have a pretty good relationship. Luka's his favorite player. He said that a thousand times before. He's tweeted it 1,000 times before. They seem to be pretty good buds, so I think LeBron stays. So those two are obviously in the starting lineup. You need to go get a 5, and honestly, if I'm the Los Angeles Lakers, I am not mad about dangling Austin Reeves right now. I know that's going to sound crazy because Austin Reeves is one of the best players on the Lakers, definitely their third best player so far this year, and has been a part of deep playoff runs with the Lakers the year they made the conference finals. But you have Luka now. You got to build a good defense around this guy because Austin Reeves, and LeBron James are going to be a defensive nightmare out there. So you got to start Rui, I think. He's been shooting above 40% from 3 on the year. And Dorian Finney-Smith and Luka have an excellent connection going back to their days in Dallas. They seem to be really good buds. They love playing together. He's a great defender and, again, a 40+% three-point shooter. He's had his best career years next to Luka. I don't see a world where you can't start those two guys. You got to start LeBron, and then you got to bring in a big. And that's where Austin Reeves comes in because he can probably get you a pretty good big. You call up teams like the Brooklyn Nets and you say, what about Nick Claxton? You call up the Atlanta Hawks and you say, what about Onyeka Okongwu? What about Clint Capella? These teams that are sort of at the bottom. You call up the Utah Jazz and say, what about Walker Kessler? I'm not sure how the financials of these trades work out. Like I said, this is all sort of gut reaction, just going off of what I'm thinking off the top of my head. So no idea on how many other factors would go into these moves. But just these are guys that if I'm the Lakers, I'm 100% interested in, and they raise my ceiling more than Austin Reeves does as a spark plug off the bench. Otherwise, you are probably looking to trade like a Rui Hachimura, and you are probably trying to pair him with a Gabe Vincent and a Dalton Connect maybe as your young promising player if you want to keep Austin Reeves, who I wouldn't be mad if they did keep because he is, like I said, one of the better offensive players on the team, a good facilitator. I just don't see how he fits in the starting lineup alongside Luka, although he is a really good shooter, but he doesn't bring it defensively the way that a guard next to Luka really needs to, especially when the other forwards are LeBron and Rui Hachimura, who have never been defensive stalwarts. So first order of business now is get a center. I don't think this team is a contender right now. I don't even know if they made this move to be a contender right now. I think they made this move because they want to be good 10 years from now, and Luka kind of guarantees that. People are going to want to come to play in LA, always, and now people are going to want to come play with one of the best players in the league. And another underrated factor about this is I mentioned the Phoenix series a couple years ago where Devin Booker got under Luka's skin, he poked the bear, and we saw a fired-up Luka Doncic. This is one of the most, I would say, angry players in the NBA, and you don't want to give him any extra ammo. And the Dallas Mavericks just gave him a whole clip of extra ammo, a whole war chest of extra ammo. Like, we are going to see an angry Luka Doncic that I feel like we've never seen before. You traded me, your franchise superstar, your franchise-altering draft pick. This is a guy that the city of Dallas was attached to. He saved their franchise. Dirk kind of passed the torch on to him. They had the 1 year as teammates, and there's an iconic picture of Luka shooting a turnaround fadeaway, like the Dirk shot, and in the shadow, it's the Dirk fadeaway silhouette that's on the court, and it really felt like this is the guy who's going to be the best player in Mavericks history. This is the next European-born Maverick who's going to lead us to the promised land as a Mavericks fan. And for him to just be traded, impossible to really wrap my head around it. But from the Lakers side of things, like I said, you got the best player in the deal. That's always going to be a win. You got a player who's going to be around for a while. That's always going to be a win. Just what pieces can you put around the Lakers put around him right now on the Lakers to maximize this team? Whether it is a Nick Claxton, whether it is a Walker Kessler on the Jazz, there are going to be plenty of teams who are going to be willing to do business with the Lakers because they still have that 2031 first-round pick. And the 2029 first-round pick that the Mavericks got, Luka's going to be 29 when that pick comes around. That's not going to be a good pick. Like I said earlier, a team with Luka Doncic is going to be really good. They've only missed the playoffs twice since Luka was on the Mavs. 1 year he was hurt, and 1 year he was a rookie. This is a team that's going to be drafting in the late 20s basically every single year. And you gave away, so the Lakers aren't even getting, or the Mavericks aren't getting a good pick. You would need, like I said, you could probably get 4 or 5 from most teams, and instead you got one that's probably going to be late 20s, maybe late teens if you get really lucky and Luka gets hurt or Luka is fat, like the Mavericks seemingly are afraid of happening, and you know it's just a dumpster fire of a year, and the Lakers stink. But doesn't make sense on the pick front either. Not only are you downgrading player wise, although I do like Max Christie, but you're not even getting a good pick from him. You're not getting anything of value, and you're letting the Lakers hold on to a 2031 first-round pick that they're going to be able to have and use for more bargaining power when they go to a team and try to get a big, because that is inevitable. They're going to go trade for a center. The Raptors, Chris Boucher and Bruce Brown. Maybe Chris Boucher isn't the starting center you're hoping for, but Bruce Brown would fit really well on this team, and Chris Boucher is a center. Like, the options are really endless right now for the Lakers. This trade should have completely shelled out their future. It should have completely shelled out all assets. It should have been both first-round picks. It should have been Anthony Davis. It should have been Austin Reeves. They should have been left basically barren. But instead, the Mavericks left them with enough where they can pivot and they can make another good, really strong move to make this team a contender right now and keep them as a contender 5 years from now, too. So I'm really excited for what the Lakers are doing. At first, I was a little like, this is a lose-lose trade. Like, I love Luka. He's one of the best players in the league. But him and LeBron, no center, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But now that I've sort of processed it, like, you left the Lakers with enough flexibility that this roster is not the final roster. There are moves that are still yet to come. So I'm excited for what they could be this year. On February 25th, the Mavericks and the Lakers play one another. That game is going to be incredible. I cannot wait for that. I think we're going to see an extra fired up, angry Luka Doncic. And just Nico Harrison, what are you thinking? And I saw in the press conference, Nico even said, like, I know what kind of players Jason Kidd likes, so I didn't ask his permission. I did this. Like, you don't trade away the best player your franchise has arguably ever seen without consulting your head coach. That's crazy. From a Mavericks side of thing, Kyrie, Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, it's basically all of the modern Robins on one team now, so that's kind of interesting. I think this team could still be solid. For Nico Harrison to say they have a better chance of winning the championship right now than they did yesterday when Luka was on the team is completely wrong. That's a terrible take. But this team will still be pretty good, I think, for right now. I think next year is a completely different story. I also think we're playing with fire if we're the Mavericks as far as Kyrie Irving. His attitude on a day-to-day basis is seemingly not flexible, but it's ever-changing. And we had him in a point for a while where he seemed pretty content to be a Maverick and to play alongside Luka Doncic. And now we're making a big change around him. How is he going to react? Because he also apparently was not informed of this possibly happening. That's such a strange... I can't, like... I'm at a loss for words. It's something that I cannot say I've ever seen happen before in the NBA or in sports, where a trade like this has come out of completely nowhere with no talking to other teams, no talking to other players and seeing if anybody is interested in this. And to just trade your franchise superstar away and have him be blindsided by it is front office malpractice. Who would ever want to play for the Mavericks? What free agent is ever going to want to play for the Dallas Mavericks if this is how you treat the guy that took you to the finals a year ago, is all-NBA first team every single year? You drafted him, homegrown, fans love him, no drama, no nothing, and you trade him out of nowhere without consulting him at all or consulting anybody on the team? No free agent is going to want to go play on that team for that front office. I can't imagine it. So this is just a terrible move. If you are a Dallas Mavericks fan, hug a Dallas Mavericks fan, man. If you know one, this is the worst possible I was telling one of my friends, imagine you're a 12-year-old Dallas Mavericks fan, a 13-year-old Dallas Mavericks fan. You've grown up your whole life loving the Mavericks. You lived through the bad years where they stunk, where they were in that weird stage where Dirk wasn't that good anymore, but he was still on the team, but you weren't competing. You get Luka, things turn around, you're making the playoffs, you're making the finals. This is the guy that's going to lead the team to the next championship. This is Dirk 2.0. You wake up on February 2nd, and he is not a Maverick anymore. That would be just heartbreaking. So, like I said, still moves to be made on the Lakers side of things. I'm excited for where they stand, and I am completely distraught if I'm a Mavericks fan about what this trade means for the franchise. This is a move that sets a team back a decade, honestly, I think. Because you had a decade guaranteed where you were going to be really good with Luka Doncic, and now you're back sort of in no man's land. You got a year maybe. You got to maximize this year, and then after that, who knows what happens. Jalen Hardy, I like him a lot. I don't think he's an all-star one day. Derek Lively, I like him a lot. I don't think he's moving the needle as an all-star franchise guy one day. You had that, and not a lot of teams ever get to draft a guy like that, ever. So those are my initial reactions, or not quite initial reactions, but now that all of the news has sort of started to trickle in, that's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time on the Debate Mates.